I joined Irvington Presbyterian Church in 1971. I've sung in the choir for over 30 years. And the music ministry at this church has been one of the most important parts of my life.
In 1853, a small group of people met where the Main Street School is now today, in a stable. Then they decided in August to meet again and to raise a stone church across from where the present church is situated on the east side of Broadway. It took only 3 months to build the church. In January of 1854, Irvington petitioned to become the second Presbyterian Church of Greenburgh. Another 15 years later, they outgrew their church and moved here to the west side of Broadway in a church built by architect James Renwick. The church stayed the same as it is inside until 1913, when Louis Comfort Tiffany, the famed decorator who did summer in Irvington for over 30 years, came back and redecorated the church and gave us these 180 plus beautiful windows. The church then was lightened up in style, and until the late 1990s, when a need for a new organ took place, it was then again redecorated, and it is the way we have it now.
Our church is undergoing renovations that have been set aside for quite some time now. We knew that we had to have the church painted, and we knew that there were things that we needed to do in order to get in a new instrument, a new organ. And so for some years now, we've been pondering how best to do this.
When I came to the church to be the music director in 1994, we had a failing electronic organ. And it was an instrument that had served the church well for, at that time, nearly 25 years, but had a number of problems that were beginning to surface and be non-repairable problems.
The Organ Study Committee was organized in early 1995. Reverend Harkness and the members of the session approved the selection of the committee. We first met in February of 1995, and we started fairly slowly. We weren't sure about how we were supposed to proceed. And we concentrated initially on the condition of the organ that we had.
The organ decisions were not taken by any single individual, but by many people who worked together over a long period of time to develop a sense of what was appropriate and needful for our space, what would be musically most effective, and where best to place it within the church.
The placement of the organ was the biggest challenge for us, because what we knew that we needed to do was to find the proper home for the instrument where the organ and the choir could work together as one ensemble.
Various members of the committee were responsible for collecting information and presenting it. We would listen to the information, and the committee was stunningly cohesive and respectful of each other.
Well, the driving idea behind the project was the importance of music in the worship life of the congregation. The feeling that we needed an appropriate instrument, but even more, we wanted to sustain the congregational involvement through song. And as we worked on the project, it evolved from simply putting in a new instrument to modifying the interior so as to sustain the worship life of the congregation.
The Organ Study Committee was asked by the session of the church to look into some architects to be able to do this work for us. There were two firms that we looked at very seriously, one a local firm and one a firm from the city. And we chose the firm of Allen and Harbinson because Gerald Allen of that firm had done a lot of work with pipe organs in the past.
Over the course of 2 years, we visited 20 different organs that were built by 15 different organ firms.
I remember particularly a visit to the church in Manhattan, which has the only other Kleiss organ in this area. And I remember sitting there in the pew and listening to Tony play it. And I thought, this is it.
So early on, we had communication with Philip Kleiss. He is the great-grandson of the founder of Kleiss Orgelbau in Bonn, Germany. This company was founded in 1882, and he was the fourth generation. A brilliant young man, and as I said, extremely interested in this project.
We liked the company, and we liked the president of the company, who made several trips over, and he understood the needs of our congregation better than some of the other organ builders. He seemed to have an intuitive sense of what it was that we would like and what it was that we needed.
And then the next piece was, wherever are we going to get this money?
When the Organ Study Committee had completed its work, David and I did discuss what we were going to do about raising the money. And the first thing we needed was a chairperson. We weren't quite sure who to ask, and finally, after we were having some difficulty with it, I asked David, I said, do you think I could do this? And he said he thought that I probably could. The other person I talked to was Jack Russell, and he was a man whose talent and style and overall good character I really admired. In many ways, I considered Jack a mentor of mine. So I called Jack, and what I got when I posed the question, did he think I could do it? He said, in his inimitable style, "Of course you can, Henry, and I'll help you."
The ability to realize this renovation is simply a matter of having like-minded people who have a little clout and an initiative get together and say, well, we're going to do it.
At the annual congregational meeting, we brought before the congregation the fact that we were going to have a capital campaign to fund all of this work that we wanted to have done.
We then were very fortunate. We did have a consultant that came to us through the Presbyterian Church, a fellow named Don Byers, who was very excellent and provided us with a lot of direction in terms of the things that had to be done. And of course, one of the things that had to be done was to get a committee together.
There was strong leadership there and a determination to do it, and the church raised far more money for this organ and the improvements than it had ever raised before.
And I am so delighted that when we had the dinner to celebrate where we were, that I was able to announce that we had already raised over $700,000, and we ended up raising a little more than $1,100,000.
Our last Sunday in the sanctuary was June 6th, 1999. Construction began on the 7th, that very next day, Monday the 7th of June. We were worshiping in our auditorium from June 13th, 1999, and we weren't back in the sanctuary until December the 12th, 1999, almost exactly 6 months. Before any work could be done, the pews had to be removed. All of the church furniture had to be removed and put someplace. Then they could begin working on the floors, and that was where they started. Working on the space between the sanctuary and the parlor required a tremendous amount of work in order to accommodate the organ pipes, but also to soundproof it in such a way that the organ music was not being sent into the parlor, but was being sent into the sanctuary. The walls needed some very serious plaster work before they could paint. So we had this wonderful Irish crew who gave us absolute craftsmanship in what they did. The organ arrived on February the 22nd, 2001. We had departed the sanctuary the previous Sunday in anticipation of this arrival.
I think we achieved more than we ever thought we would, because we've obtained the best location for the organ. We have the best possible organ. We've changed the interior so that it sustains sound and congregational worship in the best way. We found a wonderful location for the painting by Mary Tillinghast, which has always been part of our church interior. We've increased the size of the parlor so that the corporate life of worship is sustained at Irvington Presbyterian as never before.
We're extraordinarily happy with the instrument. It's a beautiful organ to play. It's a beautiful organ to hear. And from day to day, I'm constantly reminded of the multifaceted beauty of all of the sounds that were selected for this instrument.
This isn't something that we're doing within the life of the church alone. This is something that is intended to benefit the community as a whole, and something that was intended to help grow our community of faith.
Our church has always had an excellent reputation for its music program. I believe that our new Kleist pipe organ will only enhance that reputation. I think every amateur or professional musician who plays the organ or sings to the organ will be just as impressed as we are and just as delighted with the organ. I think we will leave a wonderful legacy for many generations to come.
When I came first time to this church, I have been in 1996. I've been so impressed by this church. I knew I really wanted to get this project. I really wanted to win this competition. And I felt that this is such a delicate room with this light and with this feeling of the room that I wanted to create an instrument which would fit into this very, very special room.
Thank you for those who have gone before us in this place, whom we remember today. Thank you for those with us in this time of dedication and celebration. Thank you for the hope of all those to come, generations of disciples